Om Shri Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajapacharya Satera, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya's Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jagannath Rath Yatra Gita Nagari Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories, all glories, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Pretty safe. Oh, okay, so I wanted to honor Rath Yatra. You know, like I was saying, sometimes the day after, not sometimes, always the day after is kind of anticlimactic because there's been so much energy put into the preparing for the festival, being part of the festival. Many of us came from different places, so getting here, and then it's all over. But actually, Jagannath never leaves us, and it's very wonderful to be able to remember him, even when he may be apparently not visible here, as in this case. So I'm going to just go some different instructions from Prabhupada, some different observations from His Divine Grace. But I'll just start with a verse from Sisi. It's a very short one, very well-known one, Madhya Lila 13, which is specifically about Radha and Krishna meeting at that fateful place, and then the ensuing Rath Yatra. This Avesha se Radha Krishna Kari Nivedana, se tumi se ami se Navasangama. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus spoke to Lord Jagannath. You are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani. We are meeting again in the same way that we met in the beginning of our lives. Such a heartfelt verse. So a very short purport is that after seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu woke with ecstasy, with the gopis. Being absorbed in this ecstasy, he asked Sri Damodar to sing the refrain. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus spoke to Lord Jagannath, you are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani. We are meeting again in the same way we met and the beginning of our lives. Although we are both the same, my mind is still attracted to Vrindavan Dham. I wish that you would please appear with your lotus feet in Vrindavan. So, setting the mood for the Rath Yatra. So in 1970, in May, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to Hanuman Prasad Podar, who was a dear friend, and he was the proprietor of Gita Press. And in that letter, it's a quite lengthy letter. It's almost like it is a report of his activities and what has been going on since he left India. And so this is just one part of it. If you're interested to read it, because it's definitely interesting, it's from May of 1970. So this part, though, the deity worships in the temple are Jagannath Swami, Baladev, Balaram, and Subhadra, and Radha Krishna. When we first start a temple, we start with Jagannath Swami. My Guru Maharaj recommended temples of Jagannath to these countries. So I was inspired to first of all establish Jagannath Swami because he is kind even to the Malechas. Then, when there is opportunity, I establish Radha Krishnamurti. So generally, in all our temples, Jagannath Swami and Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan pictures are inevitably there. Gradually, we are installing Radha Krishnamurtis in each and every center. By this time, the London deities, which were the first large murtis of Radha Krishna to be worshipped, had been installed, but still the premise, we start with Jagannath Swami. So first deities in ISKCON to be worshipped was Jagannath Swami, San Francisco, and in April, actually it was May 24th of 67. And then he traveled in his new Murti form to New York, was sent to New York by U.S. Postal Service to the New York Temple, Prabhupada requested. So there was some kind of friendly inter-rivalry between the West Coast and East Coast devotees in 67 because the people on the East Coast were very suspicious about the West Coast folks. And they didn't feel like we would take proper care of Swamiji. And sometimes they would send packages to us, collect. You could do it in those days. You'd send a package, collect, and you'd have to pay on this end, if you wanted to get your package. So we sent Jagannath Swami collect without telling them. So they knew Prabhupada had been with us, so they accepted it. But when they opened up there were 3 big packages, like, what are these people doing again? Because we put all kinds of flowers to accompany on the journey to New York. And of course, because it wasn't overnight, it was an airmail. Flowers had gotten a little weird. We can say moldy. So what they saw was these, unexpected, smiling, black face, big smiles, and kind of moldy flowers. And a wonderful letter to Ravindra Saru Prabhu. Prabhupada wrote, this is just part of the letter, but he wrote, I want to thank you 100 times for the excellent way you are worshiping the deity there. And he's talking about Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev. We can see from the color photographs you've sent, you can see how well the deity was being cared for. I want to thank you 100 times. From my very childhood, I was also worshiping Jagannath. When I was 6 years old, my father gave me a Rath, and I was performing Rath Yatra in my neighborhood. And now, in the Western world, you are worshiping Lord Jagannath so gorgeously, it pleases me very, very much. Thank you again for the way you are conducting deity worship in Philadelphia Temple. As for the Rath ceremony, you go on with it. I will attend there next year. But you go on holding a splendid ceremony for the people of the city. I'm sure it will be a success. Actually, in London, it's a little history, Jagannath history. First, deity San Francisco. Second, New York, Jagannath deity. Third, Los Angeles. Fourth, London. And of these four sets of the deities, only the San Francisco, which are now in Berkeley, those are the original Jagannath deities that were personally installed by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And the ones in London that are at Soho Street, those were the original Jagannath deities in London. And when we first got these deities from Sundar's carving, expecting we'll get a temple, but we didn't yet have a temple. So even in the absence of a temple, we went on with the Rath Yatra festival. And Prabhupada encouraged it like anything. And there was a huge wooden cart with huge wooden wheels. And we got a prime location to start, this marble arch. But as we started the procession, we got like maybe a block or two, not even. The wheel on the right side broke. And the cart was immovable, a big, huge cart. So the deities were taken in the hands of the devotees and the Rath Yatra without the cart carried on. No. Shyam Sundar was devastated, and he had to stay behind because they're saying, "Get this thing out of the way." Anyway, the mercy. Then later on, they were trying to get a permit, and they weren't getting the permit. This is in London, and Prabhupada told them, "Then just bring the cart and park it." We tell them we're not going to pull it, but just bring the cart and park it. That way, they'll see. They'll see the cart. They'll see Lord Jagannath. So it gives you some insight into how Prabhupada was had so much feeling for Lord Jagannath, and how Lord Jagannath reciprocated with Srila Prabhupada. It's understood that because Lord Jagannath is the most merciful form of the Lord, even those who hardly understand the philosophy behind Rath Yatra, they become free from a lifetime of karma just by seeing the festival or taking part in chanting, dancing, helping pull on the thick ropes of the chariots, One can even become liberated due to the spiritual potency of Lord Jagannath's presence. And we have no idea what's going on these Rath Yatra festivals. So the merciful Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev appeared in this material world to benefit all living beings. And then what does that benefit? So that's stated in the Narada Purana, Uttarakhanda 52, that the Supreme Lord, Narayan, tells Lakshmi Devi, in the great abode known as Purushottam Kshetra, which is rarely achieved in all the three worlds, the Keshava deity, who was fashioned by the Supreme Lord himself, is situated. If men simply see that deity, they are easily able to come to my abode. And in this way, Lord Jagannath is delivering the whole universe, especially when he rides on the cart before the eyes of everyone. So then those who are taking part, they can share in the feelings of the Lord's devotees who draw him back to Vrindavan with their love. So when we're pulling on that cart, we're developing our dormant love for him. And those fortunate souls who get the opportunity to sow the seed of love of God in their hearts, if they water that seed by continuing to hear and chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, that seed will fructify and the spiritual plant of love of Godhead will begin to grow. And therefore, by bringing this wonderful Rath Yatra festival to the West, Srila Prabhupada has given all of us the opportunity to bring Krishna into our hearts. and stimulate our original love of the Lord and enjoy our original blissful life. Yesterday, after the Rath Yatra, I had to go up to the little service station at Port Royal because there was some issue with the vehicle, and we couldn't get the devotee came with it. We couldn't know how to get the lid open, the front, whatever you call it, the hood. We tried everything. We were looking, we just couldn't find it. It was a borrowed car. At the last minute, we switched out cars. So then I see this pickup truck towing a great big fishing boat and two guys. And I thought, these men are going to know what to do. Told the girl, go over and ask. So they were very nice. They come over and they couldn't figure it out at first, but finally they did. We needed air and they took care of everything. They checked the fluids for us and they were really nice. So then, we're thanking them and the guy says, well, I want to say God bless you, but I don't know if he was like, we were like, I said, oh, thank you. He said, you're thinking we have another God. We don't. And he goes, yeah, there can only be one. You think we have another God? He goes, yeah, there can only be one God. And we said, yes, so we accept your blessings. He says, but it's coming from Jesus. And I said, perfect, because our spiritual teacher told us Jesus was the best Son of God and he wanted us to be Christ-like. So they were so happy to hear that because I was thinking, he's how Lord Jagannath, because we're here because it happened to be Jagannath Rath Yatra, and we happened to go there. And this little encounter, and that was all precipitated by Lord Jagannath, directly or indirectly, we're at his mercy. So Jagannath Puri, the town, Lord Jagannath's town, it's 75,000 people live there, full time more or less. And it's one of the most important cities in India, holy cities. And Lord Jagannath in Puri can be worshipped by everyone in Kali Yuga, even if you can't go in his temple. In fact, the importance of Jagannath Puri is sometimes called Purushottam Kshetra. It's explained in the Narada Purana, and there we find it stated that simply by visiting Puri and seeing the deity of Jagannath, one can easily attain the freedom from future births and reach the spiritual abode. So recently there was Rath Yatra in Puri, and I think it was 1.3 million people came, massive. And it was interesting this year. I was watching it on the like an online thing. So like we know the yellow, blue, green, red, these are the primary colors, we see it on the card. And even Jagannath has these primary cards. His body is green, white face, yellow face, black face. Anyways, the cards this year, there were a slightly different shade. It was still red, green, yellow, blue, but it was different tones, milder tones. It was very interesting. And it was quite lovely. And all the cards I saw that, I don't know if you have a chance, you can maybe find it on YouTube somewhere and observe that slight variation, the basic color, but a variation of it. And the same with the canopies, So it's celebrated his appearance by the Sna Purnima or Snayatra, and that's the public bathing festival. And Jagannath Subhadra Baladev. And of course, in this case, the most merciful Jagannath comes here from Baltimore. And so he'd already celebrated his Sna earlier. But he's so kind that he comes here and graces Gita Nagari every year. It's considered that the celebrated festival of Rath Yatra was started in the time of the Swarotisha Manu, which is the second Manvantar period. And it's predicted to continue until the end of the second half of Lord Brahma's lifetime. So, even if we get out a calculator, we're not going to figure out, how long that is. But we do know that Lord Brahma has an incredibly long lifetime. So the significance of Jagannath Puri and the story of how the deities first appeared, that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years at the time of King Indrajumna, was a great devotee of Vishnu. It's related to one time he heard from a devotee about an incarnation of Lord Krishna named Nilamadava. So and he just wanted to see this deity, this supreme form. So he sent many brahmanas to search for Nilamadava, and every one of them came back unsuccessful except for Vijapati. And Vijapati didn't even come back at all. He'd wandered to this distant town that was populated by these tribal peoples, the Shabaras, and they're like non-Aryan heritage. They stayed, and actually they're like pig farmers, you might say. They have these hogs. And he was staying in the house of Vishvasu. And later, he married the daughter of Lalita. So Vijapati noticed that Vishvasu would leave the house every night, and then he would not return until noon of the next day. So he asked his wife, "What's going on?" And even though her father had ordered her not to tell anyone, she told Vijapati, that was her, that's her husband. And she said Vishvasu would go to a secret meeting of Nilamadava. So you can imagine how he felt. I mean, maybe we can't imagine, we're so dull, but suddenly the whole purpose of the reason why he went there and forgot about it because suddenly he fell in love with Lalita and the whole life, and here was his purpose. He was gone. Nilamadava, suddenly his name was there and his father-in-law was worshiping him. So that must have been a fairly ecstatic moment. So he was begging him, take me, take me, take me. And finally, he got permission. He could go, but he had to agree to be blindfolded. And his wife, being a little bit clever, she put mustard seeds in a cloth with a little hole so that when he's walking, a little seed would fall, a little seed would fall. And that way there would be a little path. And they reached the shrine, and Vijapati saw the deity Nilamadava after the Shabara removed the blindfold, and he was just feeling this really intense ecstasy. So then Vishwashu goes out, he's collecting the items for worship. And Vijapati looked up and he saw this bird fall into a nearby lake and drowned. And then suddenly the soul of that bird took spiritual form and it ascended back to the spiritual world. And for some reason, Vijapati, he also wanted to do the same thing. So he climbed a tree and he was going to jump in the lake. And then one of these, voices from the sky, wait, don't do that. First you should tell King Indrajumna that you found Nilamadava. So then he realized, yeah, that's a good idea. And when Vishvasu returned to worship the deity, Nilamadava spoke. And he told him, he goes, for so long that I've been accepting this simple worship from you. As you can imagine, there was no opulence. He would go to the forest, whatever he could find. So for so long, I am accepting this, simple worship. But now he wanted to accept opulent worship that could be offered by King Indrajumna. So Vijapati told the king, he told the king, Indrajumna immediately went to find Nilamadava, but he couldn't find him. So then the king, Indrajumna, arrested Vishwasu, another voice, you have to release the Shabara. And he should build, and he meaning Indrajumna, should build a temple on top of Nila Hill, where the king could see Lord as Daru Brahma, the wooden manifestation of the Absolute. So all this is going on, and with great endeavor, he built this temple at Sri Kshetra, now known as Jagannath Puri. And then he later prayed to Lord Brahma to consecrate it. But Lord Brahma said it wasn't within his power to do that, since Sri Kshetra is manifested by the Lord's own supreme internal potency. It's where the Lord resides. So Brahma simply put a flag, so we all know about that flag, on the top of the temple. And then he blessed it, saying, anyone from whoever from any distance sees this flag offers obeisances and can easily be liberated from the material world. So most of us, I don't know if there's anybody in here maybe Parijata can get into the temple of Jagannath Puri. Maybe you can. But most of us can't. But we have that flag. We go our ways, and just like Haridas Thakur, you could see the flag. Actually, Prabhupada went to Jagannath Puri only, like they'd invited him, but he only accepted the invitation because he wanted to tell them he should allow these Western devotees, you know. And they wouldn't, they didn't accept his very good argument. So he wouldn't go in. He could have gone in, but because we weren't allowed, he didn't go in either. So then, after much waiting, the king was anxious because the temple's there, the flag's there, Nilamadava hadn't manifest. So then he's thinking, oh my God, my life is useless. So he decided he'd end his life by fasting. Fasting to death is a bona fide way of departing if you want to go early. I'm not recommending it to anybody, but just saying here. So he was going to end his life by fasting. But in a dream, the Lord said, he would appear floating from the sea as Daru Brahman. So when Srila Prabhupada was first brought the very small, because they were very small, little wooden Jagannath deities that I had found, he goes, this is Jagannath. This means Jagannath means Lord of the universe. This is Krishna. No. And then he told us the story about how the log came in from the sea. So he went to the shore. The king went to the shore. He found this huge piece of wood, had the markings of a conch, disc, club, and lotus. Of course, the piece of log we found didn't have those markings, but nonetheless, it was large and it came from the sea. So this was Daru Brahman. And as try as they might, all of us men together, they couldn't budge that log. And it was big, but still with all the might. And so again, in a dream, the Lord spoke to Indradyumna and it said, get Visvashu and put a golden chariot in front of Daru Brahma. So after doing this and forming a kirtan party to chant the holy names, praying for Daru Brahma to mount the chariot, Daru Brahma was easily moved, and Lord Brahma performed a sacrifice where the present temple now stands. And then they installed a deity of Nrsingadev. And that deity is there on the western side of the temple. And during Rath Yatra, there is also a small form of Nrsingadev on the cart of Jagannath. So from the wooden Daru Brahma, the king requested many expert carvers to carve that form of the deity, but no one could do it. As soon as they would hit their chisel, the chisel would break immediately as soon as they touched the wood. So finally, the architect of the demigods, Vishwakarma, arrived. He didn't come with great pomp and ceremony. He came in like an old, feeble man, blind almost, named Ananta Maharana. So he promised he would carve the deity form of the Lord inside the temple within 3 weeks. If there was a little catch, if the king would allow him to work behind closed doors and not disturb him. So yeah, the king agreed to that. But then after 14 days, the king was getting anxious because suddenly each day he was hearing sound of the chisel hitting. So he was confident this is happening. Suddenly it was quiet. He became really anxious. Couldn't hear the sounds. He couldn't stand it anymore. And then, on the advice of the queen, say, come on, you're the king, you can do whatever you want. He personally opened the doors of the temple to see what was happening. And there he saw these, what he considered the unfinished forms of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev. But because the king had opened the doors sooner than agreed upon, the Supreme Lord was in this apparently unfinished state. So then he manifested in this form. And what had happened was that, that he'd been working 2 weeks, the carver. He was just taking a little rest, taking a break. but there was that little pastime. So the king felt he committed great offense. He'd opened the door. So again, he decides to end his life. But in a dream, Lord Jagannath told the king that even though he'd broken his promise, it was just part of the Supreme Lord's pastimes to display this particular form of the Lord. And the king was told that this form, even though it appears incomplete, it's actually the form of the Lord that was meant to be worshipped in Kali Yuga. So occasionally the king would decorate the deity with golden hands and feet, specifically on the after the Rath Yatra when they come back from Gundicha. So the Rath Yatra is on the way to Gundicha. On the way back, it's another but less opulent festival. And then they wait 3 days outside before going inside the temple. And on the first 2 days, anybody can go up on that cart, touch the Lord. Third day, nobody's allowed because they put on this beautiful golden dress, this hands, feet, all kinds of, necklaces and the crowns, everything is, I forget how much gold it is, but it's a lot. And so nobody can go up at that time. So he has these beautiful, and then after that, they go inside. Hmm. Yeah, so this form of the Lord, even though he's not seen in the temple by everyone, out of his mercy, he comes out on this Rath Yatra so that we can have this beautiful darshan. It's the most popular time to go to Puri, Jagannath Puri, hottest time of the year also. But upon seeing the beautiful Lord on his chariot, you can feel a little, cool down. But hundreds and thousands of pilgrims flock to Puri to take part in this auspicious event, and it's been celebrated for thousands of years, making one of the oldest and grandest festivals in the world. And obviously, it's expensive, as big as this festival is. I'm sure there was definitely expense yesterday to have this Grand Rath Yatra festival. And so the very interesting thing is that the Puri government there, they are primarily financed by the Orissa government. So the constructions of the carts begin 2 months every year, brand new carts. It's not like, we take our carts, put them in storage. In fact, in some places the carts are like, we just had last weekend with Michigan, and our cart comes from Canada. It comes in. Then there's another cart that comes from North Carolina to different Rath Yatras. And then we have a little cart in Ohio that comes to some of our smaller Rath Yatras in Ohio. But Jagannath Puri, one off, you use it, you know. So it starts the construction, 2 months before. On the third day, it's not like random, it's the third day of the bright fortnight of Vaishakha between April and May. 600 trees or 400 cubic meters of wood are needed for the construction. So it's taken from along this river, the Mahanandi River, and they use simple tools. Like, we have our electric drills, like electric hammers, all this stuff. I said they use the same simple tools and procedures that they have done for the past hundreds of years. And they're not using we have all kind of metal type of things. And once the basic elements are made, such as the wheels, then that's the first to be prepared, and then they go on to the actual carts. And it's only a few weeks before the festival. So in the main road in front of the temple, these huge stacks of wood, and that's to be used to assemble the chariots. And the chariots are up to 3 stories high, rolling on these 8-foot high wheels. And like we bind our wheels with like metal, because after this, I told you what happened in London, the wheel came apart, right? So we from that time started putting like a metal strap on the wheel, and sometimes now even putting over the metal some rubber to make it easier, on the people pulling. And then the chariots are painted with those bright colors, so that's a whole beautiful ceremony. Red, black, yellow, green canopies. And the colors signify which chariot is for which deity. So Lord Jagannath's chariot is red and yellow. Balaram uses red and green, and Subhadra uses red and black. And the deities are, painted like the same colors reflecting of the deities. And there is some significance that Lord Jagannath's blackish color represents faultless qualities. Balaram's white color represents enlightenment, and Subhadra's yellow color is goodness. And you can see that the cards are slightly different. So the card of Lord Jagannath is called the Chakradwaj or the Nandigoshi, and it means tumultuous and blissful sound. And his card has 16 wheels, and his card is 45 feet tall. How tall is this temple? I was trying to, anyways, 45 feet tall. Balaram's card is the Taladwaj, and that means the sound of significantly powerful rhythm. It has 14 wheels, and it's drawn by 4 black wooden horses. So when Prabhupada asked us first to have Jagannath Rath Yatra, so the deities had come, and then he told us a few months later, it's time for Rath Yatra, which we had no clue what that was. He explained to us, and he drew it by hand, a little Rath card, and he included the horses. Very, simple drawing. He only told us like a couple weeks before the actual festival, so there was no time that year to. So Prabhupada had been looking out his window, which overlooked the street, and he saw that our neighbors had a flatbed truck. So he was the one who suggested that we use a flatbed truck and then construct something on the back of the truck for the deities to ride in for that first festival. He was always so creative, clever, thinking of how to promote Krishna. What do we have? Okay, we don't have anything, but hey, look, your neighbors have a truck. So they loaned that truck, flatbed truck to us. So you can imagine they were a group called the Diggers. And I don't know, it's like, how do you describe a hippie? Well, that's easier to describe than a digger. They were kind of these people who were really against the bourgeois population. They're trying to get unionized and get people to have a better deal in life. They also gave out free food. They were right next door to us. So they liked us because we also had free meals. They saw us as contributors. Yeah, so they gave us that truck to use. So then the Taladaj, the truck of Balaram, it has Hanuman on its crest. And then Subhadra's card is the Padma Dwaj or the Darpanavalam. And that means destroyer of pride. It has a lotus on its crest. There's 12 wheels, and there's four red wooden horses. And then after the Rath Yatra, so we see our little cart is still waiting. I don't know where it's stored here in Gitanagri. Yeah? Okay, so they'll go to its storage place. So you know what happens to carts in Jagannath Puri? They're torn apart. From the pile of wood became the carts, and from the carts became a pile of wood. You know what they do with this wood? They cook the meals for Lord Jagannath's offering, and it lasts about 9 months. So all the meals in Jagannath for his offerings, they're cooked on wood. There's no gas stoves, no propane, no kerosene. And of course, 2 weeks before the festival, we have the Snayatra. That's formed in front of the main festival. And it was pretty exciting this year. They're bringing out the deities. And it takes many, many men, because they're heavy. And I'm not sure if this is for the snar, after the snot, but Baladev is coming out, and suddenly he lurched back. And there's all these people there, and they got the mercy of Baladev falling on them. Nobody was, there was some injury, maybe, but 9 people nobody was killed. But they got some mercy, as we say. But that was definitely a merciful to have the Lord fall up at you. But they come out, everybody gets to observe from the street or on the roof of one of the buildings. Rooftops are very much in the news nowadays, for different reasons. In Butler, Pennsylvania, somebody was on a rooftop. But better to be on the rooftop and observe the beautiful Rath Yatra festival. So then, they get this Sna Yatra. They appear to get, they call the pastime of getting a cold. We're taken into a designated area. They get special treatments and offerings. They don't have the regular type of cooking. Very simple. Some herbs and a special kitchery without any spices. And then during this time, if need be, they're repainted. And no one is allowed darshan at this time. Like sometimes people go, "Oh, you want to see Lord Jagannath? Like he's sick," and they're not supposed to be disturbed because they're in convalescence. And then every 12 or 19 years, the bodies of the deities are replaced with new ones. And they're, again, ritualistically carved from a selected Dara Brahma. So this Dara Brahma is in the form of a neem tree. It's not coming from the ocean. And it's known as Navakalevarana. And it's a big festival. And nothing around Lord Jagannath just kind of happens. It's a big festival. And it occurs when there's an additional month, a leap year in the Vedic calendar. So it's between the Snayatra and the Rath Yatra. And the last time this was performed was in 2015. And so when the deities are brought out, first is Balaram, then Subhadra, and then Lord Jagannatha. In Toronto, they have Balaram in the front. In New York, because we started out with one cart, so there was like not a question. But then, when they finally got the 3 carts, that we were always having Jagannath in the front. But then devotees started going to Puri, they started noticing the format. So in some temples, such as Toronto, Balaram leads the way. New York, though, Jagannath is still leading the way. Either way, they're all going. And when the deities come out, there's a huge amount of excitement because there are people that aren't allowed in the temple, and now finally here he comes, here they come, and they're getting to see him face to face, practically speaking. But again, if you're in a tall building, you can see more. Then once the deities they come out, they have these big headdresses. You might have seen them. So they're made of shola. Shola is from a plant, and they're carved. So they're very enormous. Once they get on the cart, they take these headdresses off and they tear them up and distribute the pieces as a prasadam. King of Puri arrives. It used to be he would walk in front of the cart with the broom. I'm getting out of time here, so I can't tell the story of why he doesn't do that anymore, but it's very interesting. And but now he goes on the carts themselves, and he sweeps each cart. He walks up, he sweeps with the golden handled broom, then he takes sandalwood scented water, circumambulates 3 times, and cart by cart he does this. And then when the carts begin to roll, of course, there's even more excitement, like Jai Jagannath. Everybody raises their hands, they watch the carts go by, and eventually it gets to the Gundisha. So it's a 2-mile route, get down there. And they stay there for a week before coming back. And then sometimes during the procession, the cart stops. One of the carts will stop. Could be Balaram's, could be Jagannath, just stops. And everybody's like pulling, and it just stops. So if that happens and they can't get it to go, the cart will just stay there overnight until the next day. Um, and sometimes, if there's really difficulty, a local government minister will go personally and pray to Lord Jagannath for forgiveness for whatever offenses the residents of the towns may have committed. And then again, the cart will begin to move by the will of Lord Jagannath. So the first 2 nights on the cart are spent outside the Gundicha temple or wherever the cart may be if they stop. And during that time, again, the pilgrims, you can go up in the cart, see the deities, even the Western people, you can get up there, embrace them. And then they go inside the Gundicha temple for the 3rd night, and they stay there. And then coming back, similar parade. And this time you can get, because there's not as many massive amounts of people, then you can really get close to the carts. You can, hold the ropes. And the return trip usually just takes 1 day. So then again, as I mentioned, they stay 2 nights outside the actual Jagannath and Puri Mandir. Again, people can go up on the cart. And then the Sunavesh festival, which is when as I mentioned, they're dressed in the gold outfits. And the golden crowns, hands, feet, there's a golden peacock feathers, golden earrings, different golden necklaces, a silver conch, a gold disc for Lord Jagannath, a golden club and plow for Lord Balaram. So they're all solid gold and they weigh up to 1 ton. It's a lot of gold. As such, nobody is allowed on the cart during this particular festival, just the most intimate servants. And then after that, they stay 1 more day and then they're taken inside the following evening, and thus ends the Rath Yatra festival until the next year. So, little narration of the festival, how it goes, and thank everybody very much for this wonderful pastime of Rath Yatra festival in Gita Nagari, because it's actually very opulent. It's the natural opulence, the cows, the trees, the peacocks, and all of these devotees. And it seems that the devotees are increasing every year. I think last year was a little more increased than this year, but it was a wonderful turnout. So thank you all who came. Hare Krishna. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Sorry for not taking the Bhagavatam first, but yesterday I didn't have the opportunity to speak about Jagannath. Sorry, even called.
Okay. So I thank Malati and Goes Malati Prabhu for this wonderful opportunity to hear about Lord Jagannath today. And so we'll start preparing the Yagya Kund for the ceremony, for initiation ceremony, which will start most likely at 10:15, 10:30 most likely. So those who can help us, please help us to prepare. Thank you.
You have to get to cook that.
You going now after breakfast?
Is it serve breakfast?
Yeah. The welcome center. Yeah, this is good.
I wasn't sure. I
Well,
wasn't cooking Sebastian.
no, this is
Yeah. Very efficient.
Thank you very much. I got the verse.
You were seeing it starts at 10?
The initiation?
Yes.
Probably 10:30. It takes about an hour to prepare.
Oh,
And the priest arrived yesterday 11:30 at night, so I hope it's okay.
come on.
Okay. It's not- No, another one that I would do. So you are the heart of it. You are the and you
Hashtamandahachitrunnahen Satyasagare Saparishasinghamantupakashudhavadhavadare Tapasvarangudori Bhagavatam Amona Rishite Kadachari Mahasupakitasapamen Nikajendachireki Kambu Sanskritas Tuttamangiguna Chira Talona Kutula Pasun Gunsa Gumpati Tatu Amapinda Lampamani Puttameka Lavia in the children. Tashkara, Kinkini, Kalpabari, Mandu, Harita, Naka, Zoro, Associates, Tagadi, Shiki, Hamakutari, Kalpabari, Ekamantanara, Mara, Vasara, Radha, From Snake, Kana, to go the king, the Bali, the Namata, Taka, Shiki, Hamakutari, Father, Nanantako, the Hello, Pajajate, Himadija, Sulomaja, Shajabala, Praja, Apara, Seda, Deda, Satpadandu, Lana, Geki, Radari, Sati, Mantapas, Atapadanam, Keshari, Srieshari, Sareshari, Sareshari, Tivera, Bali, Sheshari, Man, Shashan, Esari, Nameshari, San. Buddha Chan, Yari, Rajashri, Vajitiye, Arikamo, Siddhima, Bhakti, Tam, Habakam, Hapishin, Panandanam, Shutat, Sakutavyo, Vespatai, the Santika, Liupa, Karma, Nashina, Tada, Vajenda, Mandala, Veshana, Another governments is very good.